She stood on my porch at 6 in the morning with a clipboard like she was serving divorce papers, Patricia all-designer parka, and perfect hair snowflakes stuck to her eyelashes like jewelry, and told me my snowblower had ruined her beauty sleep. I blinked at her wiping snow off my gloves and thought, this is how small wars start. You ever do something simple for people and then suddenly you're the villain in their story? That was me. I'd been clearing Mountain Vista Drive for 8 winters. 2 miles of winding private road, 15 houses, one little community that should have meant something. And I did it because somebody had to, not because I wanted applause. The county plowed the highway fine, but our road, the HOA didn't budget for it. Somebody before me, an old guy named Harold, used to do it. Then he moved to assisted living, and the work fell into a vacancy, like a missing tooth. I owned a commercial-grade snowblower and a truck plow, and I used them early quiet before the sun was up so people could get to work. No payment, no speeches. Just the kind of neighborly thing people used to do. Patricia read from the bylaws like a prosecutor. Section 12, paragraph 4, she said, breath visible in the cold. No power equipment before 7 on weekdays, 8 on weekends. I said I'd follow the rules because who wants to be the guy who argues with a clipboard at dawn? I agreed, and then, because I am apparently allergic to being pushed around, I planned. Next morning I stayed inside until exactly 7, made coffee, fed the cat, watched the snow pile up like a slow-moving wall. At 7 on the dot, I went out and cleared only my driveway, not an inch more. By 7:30, my phone started ringing. Doug, 4 houses down, was incredulous. You kidding me, he said. Not even a little, I said. I wanted to see what would happen when the people who'd depended on me actually had to depend on themselves. By 8, the whole road was a white lid. Another foot, maybe a foot and a half, had fallen overnight. Sharon Kamal, who works nights at the hospital, called me in tears. Wesley, I have to be at the hospital, she said. I'm begging you. That got to me. I fired up the truck and plowed a single lane from her driveway to the main road, just enough for her to get out. I parked my truck back in the garage and left the rest. People texted, called, begged. Jennifer needed to get to a client meeting. Robert had a flight. They'd all thanked me at cookouts before, patted my shoulder, told me I was a good neighbor. Not one of them had defended me when Patricia showed up with her clipboard. That stung more than the cold. Patricia returned mid-morning. Not alone this time, Linda and Michael from the board stood behind her like a coronation. You're holding the neighborhood hostage, she accused. You stopped out of spite, Linda hissed. I told them the truth. I stopped because I realized I'd been covering for their negligence. The HOA bylaws, which I pulled up on my phone that afternoon, said the association was responsible for common areas, including roads, and that maintenance included activities necessary to keep areas safe and accessible. Snow removal seemed to fit the definition right. Apparently not according to the people wearing nicer boots than mine. They offered a compromise, allow snowblowers at 6:30 like that was some grand concession. I told them 8 years of free labor was enough. If the road needed professional service, then budget for it. Michael, who handled the book, said it would mean a special assessment. Hold a vote, I said. Good luck with that. Weather, as it often does, refused to care about HOA politics. The storm kept dumping. By day 4, we had an emergency meeting. I ignored the email at first, then curiosity or spite or principle I went. Linda's living room smelled like expensive coffee, and Patricia stood at the front clutching her clipboard like armor. She called the situation a crisis and presented me as the villain. I calmly read the bylaws out loud. There was a shift in the room, the kind that happens when a truth slips out and people have to hold it. Someone asked why snow removal wasn't in the budget. Michael admitted it was deemed cost-prohibitive, estimates of $15,000 to $20,000 a season. So you didn't do it, Doug demanded. Half the room was angry at the board. The other half just wanted the road cleared. Then Robert Quiet lived here. Since the beginning, Robert proposed a special assessment to hire professionals right then and there. The motion passed 11 hands up, 3 abstentions. Michael resigned on the spot. The board that had lectured us about rules just lost its accountant, and it seemed its composure. Big plows showed up 2 days later. The road was cleared by noon. People grumbled about the assessment, but at least they could leave. I thought that would end it. I was wrong. 3 days after the plows left, I got a certified letter from Linda's husband's law firm. They were suing me for negligence, $25,000 in damages, claiming my sudden cessation of plowing caused Jennifer to lose a client. Jennifer, by the way, wrote me a letter saying she had nothing to do with this lawsuit and had never asked the HOA to sue me. Tom, my friend and property lawyer, told me they were reaching intimidation, maybe a pressure move to make me start plowing again for free. We filed motions, countered, documented everything. Legal costs stacked up like bad winter piles. The next 2 months were a slog: discovery, depositions, motions. Tension crawled through the neighborhood. Patricia wouldn't look me in the eye. Linda crossed the street to avoid me. But other neighbors, Doug, Frank, the retired firefighter, Sharon, started showing up with beers and cookies. Quiet support matters. People started talking. Turns out a portion of the HOA funds had been used without proper authorization to bankroll that lawsuit. Robert organized a petition to recall Patricia and Linda for misuse of authority and mismanagement. The petition needed 2/3 signatures. It got them in a week. Recall Election Day felt like a small revolution. Patricia spoke about fairness and property values like she was giving a TED Talk about control. Robert read a list of grievances: failure to budget, selective enforcement, using HOA money for personal litigation. When the votes were counted 13-2, they were out. The board voted to withdraw the suit and apologize. Then Twist Legal Trouble found them misappropriation charges, a plea restitution. Part of that restitution came to me to cover legal fees. I remember sitting on my porch with the deputy's paperwork in my hand, the check for $8,000 in my pocket, thinking justice has a funny way of turning up slow and clumsy, but sometimes it does. After the dust settled, Robert asked if I'd join the board. I almost said no. I'd never wanted to be part of the machinery I'd been fighting. But if you want change, someone has to do the work. I said yes. First order: make snow removal an explicit budget line. Revise the noise rule to exempt necessary maintenance. Set up clear expectations and compensation for anyone doing the job. We did it. We also planned a barbecue to try to fix what had been broken. That first summer barbecue after the storm felt like breathing again. People brought casseroles, kids ran in circles, making new rules for old games. Frank grilled like it was a sacred task. Conversations that had been stifled by fear and pettiness opened up into real talk about drainage, road repair, and how to not be a jerk to your neighbor. The community started looking like the reason I moved here in the first place. And then winter came again, nature not particularly impressed by our human dramas, and this time we were ready. A major storm dumped 4 feet over 3 days. The professional service did most of the work, and when they hit a mechanical snag, the dispatcher called me. "Any chance you could help?" he asked. I went out, fired up my old snowblower under the tarp, and cleared the upper section while they fixed their truck. They paid me. I accepted. The difference was I was paid and thanked, not expected. That choice, doing something because you want to, not because you're expected to, changed everything. I helped neighbors when it made sense. They helped me back. We set up rotating volunteer schedules for small tasks and reserved professional help for the heavy stuff. The HOA stopped being a bureaucracy of control and started being a system that served the people it was supposed to serve. A year later, Robert stepped down and, to my surprise, nominated me for president. The vote was unanimous. Me, the guy who'd wanted to be left alone, now running the thing. My first proposal was a community service plan, clear roles, compensation when needed, and traditions that brought people together. It wasn't glamorous, but it worked. Meetings got boring in the best way. We repaved a rotten patch of road, fixed drainage, even negotiated better internet for the whole subdivision. Little things that add up. People moved on. Patricia and Linda left town. Their lives were messy afterward, and I won't pretend I enjoyed that. I felt sympathy they'd let pride and control turn them into people who made bad choices. But I also felt relief. We'd fixed the system and in the process learned something important: when generosity is treated like a duty, it dries up. Boundaries matter. Respect matters. So what's the moral? It's not a neat lecture, it's a small, hard truth. I learned standing on a snowy porch, sometimes you have to stop doing someone else's job before they realize it needs doing. Sometimes you have to say no before people learn the value of your yes. And sometimes you have to sit through the storm, the angry letters, the lawsuits, the tension, because the outcome is a community that finally functions without one person being burned out and taken for granted. The last time I watched Mountain Vista Drive melt into spring runoff, the creek roaring birds sounding like they'd been waiting for months to sing, I felt something close to peace. The road was clear, the budget set, the noise rule sensible, the barbecue scheduled. I kept my snowblower under a tarp, knowing I might use it again, but only when I chose to. So, here's the question I want to leave you with, and tell me in the comments, please. If you were the one plowing at dawn, would you have kept doing it to keep the peace? Or would you have let the road go and forced the issue even if it meant chaos for a while? Where do you draw the line between being a good neighbor and being a doormat? Tell me your story. I want to hear how you handled it.